Welcome to the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast on YouTube. My name is Carey Nieuwhof, and my goal is to help you lead like never before. So what I do every week is I sit down with world-class leaders and church leaders, business leaders, and I talk to them about what made them who they are and try to have the conversation with them that you would have if you got to sit down for lunch with them or have dinner with them or really got to spend some time with them. So we go into the backstory and we explore what made them who they are and some of the principles they've learned along the way. So if you enjoy this episode, I would love for you to like it, to subscribe, and also to share it with your friends. And in the meantime, here's today's episode.
I am so excited to be here with you today, man.
Well, it's been great. We're getting to know each other a little bit. And here we are at Transformation Church,
Yes,
which
sir.
is an arena.
An arena,
Which is really, really cool. You've had a rocket ride in the last 24 months.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to walk us through sort of the whiplash that's been happening? I'd love just to because I think a lot of people know your story, but it's pretty remarkable what's happened because it didn't just start 24 months ago.
No, sir. This has been a kind of culmination, if you will, of a lot of obedience steps along the way. But I don't know how much time we have because this is a long story. But
I have all the time in the world.
Okay. I think the best place to start this is that I always thought I would be in music production. I play a few instruments, have always done music, and I thought that's where I'm going to make my mark on the world. And God kind of used music as a segue into ministry. And I started off as the sound man at Greenwood Christian Center. And as the sound man there, I went from the sound man to over the music, from over the worship experience as a music director to the youth pastor, from the youth pastor to the executive pastor, and from the executive pastor to the lead pastor in 5 years.
Wow.
And how that happens, I have no idea except I lived it. And it was just step after step, moment after moment, movement after movement, obedience after obedience, and working the season I was in that produced this amazing moment of really trying to impact the world using my gift of communication. And it's been a lot of leadership lessons I've learned along the way, a lot of trial and error of finding out who I am. But this has been kind of one of those crazy roller coaster rides of a bunch of obedience steps.
And so take us back,
Okay.
Because you took over. You didn't start
No.
Transformation Church.
Transformation Church has been going for 21 years. We just celebrated 2 weeks ago, 21 years of ministry and as a church, and then 5 years of me and Natalie being a pastor. And it was started by Gary McIntosh and Debbie McIntosh, which are a white, older, amazing couple. And if you're listening to this, the reason why that's so powerful in our day and age is because they started a church in the hood of Tulsa.
Yeah, North Tulsa.
In North
right?
Tulsa, where one of the worst race massacres happened in 1921, Black Wall Street. And they felt that they were supposed to go there and reverse the curse. And they started a church there. And then to be able to hand it over 15 years later to a young African-American leader who then would take it to the world in a different kind of way has been a really, really cool story that has been written.
So I just found out, I've been in Tulsa for a couple days getting ready for this. I did not know the story of Black Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
Can you give us what happened? It's just devastating.
It's completely devastating, and it's a story that's so unfortunately not told in American history or even Oklahoma history.
I have a degree in American history.
Yeah, no.
I didn't know about it.
1921, over a very minimal interaction between a young lady and a man of different races and different classes and different socioeconomic classes, this massacre started. And there's conspiracy theories around it. There's all kind of stuff that go with it. But the whole crux of it is that an entire community that was at one time the wealthiest community of African Americans in the U.S. They called it Black Wall Street. It was that influential with all types of businesses and communities and self-sustaining and stuff. Within 48 hours, it was completely burned down, bombed, and many people lost their lives. And since that time, it has still been the oppressed and depressed area of our city. So you can drive over there now and see the disparity between just the people that live there and the rest of our city. And it's kind of a hush hush, kept quiet type of thing. But there's so many amazing people that I believe that God has called our church to reach. And so our founding pastor started the church right in the middle of that devastation in 1999 and started to be the bridge of racial reconciliation. So to even be continuing that on, and the diversity that we see in these seats every Sunday is just a testament to the vision he started being carried on by another generation.
So you take over in 2015.
Yes, sir.
And how big is the church at that point?
350 people.
Right.
And and most of them, when I took over, were like, yeah, this is not going to last. So we're leaving. And
well, I see the picture in the lobby when you come into Transformation Church, and you look at you. You're how old when
26, I believe.
26. And then you look at the senior pastor. It's like, yeah, you would not normally put you two together.
I think, according to my knowledge, one of the only successful transitions of leadership from a white elder person to a young African American in American history.
Wow. So you start out 350 people,
yes,
and for a few years, there's no inflection point. You started to grow a little bit.
Everybody that would come, somebody would leave. Like, it was kind of like one of those things. It was like, oh, we got a new family. And then they would tell me, like, the Johnsons just left. And it was just
they took their money with them.
Yeah, they took everything with them. And for the first 2015, 2016, a lot of those years were just maintaining.
Yeah.
And I lost, honestly, all of my staff the second year of leadership.
So they all left?
For some other, and not like a revolt or something like that, but some people didn't work out. Yeah. Some people had a transition in life, and other people felt like they couldn't go with my leadership. And so, I mean, literally, I'll let you meet her before you leave, but Miss Tammy, she was the over all of the business. She's been my only staff member that stayed with me from before I became the pastor to the transition to now. And she's our CFO. And there would be days I would walk into the office with just me and her. And I would be talking in faith to people who weren't there. Hey, Sally, it's so good to see you. How are the kids, John? And she would be cracking, dying laughing, because she's like, what are you doing? I said, one day we'll have a staff that I'll have to talk to and see. But today, to encourage myself, I got to do it in faith. And so,
so there's no one there.
No one there.
Wow.
But that was a season that really made me. Because I thought if I had all my friends that I'd done youth ministry with and all these crazy graphic designers and all of these people who said they believed in me, if we were a team and we were all there, that I could be a pastor. Because I had no qualifications to be able to do it. And so I felt like I needed everybody. And looking hindsight, I feel like God stripped everybody away to make sure that I knew I was called to this besides anybody else.
How did you keep yourself encouraged in those first few years?
I relied heavy on the vision. And that's why I believe that God tells us it's not a vision until you write it down and make it plain. And too many people, they have visions and dreams. I feel like it's dreams when it's in your head. It's an actual vision when you write it down.
Okay.
And most people are living their life in a dreamland instead of an actual vision. And when I wrote that vision down, that we would represent God to the lost and found for transformation in Christ. And I wrote the vision down that we would be multi-ethnic, multi-generational, multiplying and multi-campus. When I wrote the vision down that one day our church would span the globe and be able to impact people in places we would never be able to set foot in. When God gave me the vision of this building, like all of those things were vision. And so instead of looking at sight, I had to close my eyes and see vision. See, most people think vision and sight are the same thing, but sight is what you see with your eyes open. Vision is what you see with your eyes closed. I saw this. I was preaching to this room before I ever actually did. Because my sight was I was preaching to 150 people who seemed like they didn't want to be there sometimes. And like some of them had just drank pickle juice. Like that's what my sight was. But my vision was I was speaking into an arena of people. I was speaking to white and black, young and old. And that was my vision. And so that's really what kept me encouraged. And then going to other places, like other churches, other ministries, other concerts that gave my vision an actual sight.
Yeah.
So I would go to a Justin Timberlake concert, and I would look at the technology, and I'd see the lights hanging, and I would see the LED screens. And I was like, I saw that in my vision, and it's possible because I see it with my sight. And that's really how I stayed encouraged in those years.
So take us back, because you shared this with me before we started filming. You had a day where you actually wrote down and your church wasn't very big, that you would be right here in what was the Spirit Center?
Spirit Bank Event Center.
Okay, Spirit Bank Event Center, which
name.
is now Transformation Church. And I mean, we're in an arena that seats 4,000-ish
4,500 people.
4,500 people. We're in an arena that used to be for sports, and you'll fill this on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And you had that vision. So tell us about that day.
So I think one of the craziest things about my journey is that I was offered a lot of opportunities, I feel, by God, and I took them. So one day in my quiet time, I get up and I pray and I meditate. I felt like, hey, write this down. I was like, write this down. Okay. So I get my laptop up, and it's like, the Spirit Bank Event Center will be Transformation Church. And I just go down, and I mean, it seems completely crazy in the moment, like completely nutty. We have no money. We have nobody barely coming to the church. But I write down this whole document, and I go to Google and I look up a picture of the Spirit Bank Event Center. And when I do that, I take it off, and I with Pages. I didn't have any real Photoshop experience, so Pages, I did my best, and I tried to be very intentional. I put the Transformation Church logo on it, and I spelled transformation wrong for some reason, and all of these things. And I wrote it down, and then I marked it. It was March 9th, 2015, 7:29 a.m. in Bella's room, which is my oldest daughter.
Wow.
And when I look at that document today, Carey, I just get emotional because there was no actual way that I could make that happen.
Yeah.
The only thing that I did was I believed enough to write the vision down.
You didn't even have momentum at that point.
No. Like I just had a migraine. I think that no momentum. I just had a migraine at that point. And I was faithful. And I was continue to work on my craft and work on my gift. But I wrote that down. I shared it with 3 or 4 people. And that was 1 month.
What did they say?
The patronizing, like, oh, okay.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, okay.
Michael.
Yeah, that's going to be good. Like, but the one thing I can say is that the pastor emeritus, Bishop McIntosh, I told him, and he said, let's go over. Let's go see it. And we came over here. We broke in. I admit, we broke in. The door was open, but we came in, and we walked around as much as we could get into. And he said, I think this is your building. And I said, I think this is too. He said, stand right there and take a picture. And I have the picture of me standing in the lobby with my hands wide open, and he's behind the camera, which is such a chilling picture, or an invigorating picture in my mind, that the person who started this, who handed it over to somebody and is just trying to keep it alive, he had the faith to encourage me in that moment. Hey, that one day I think this thing that would eclipse anything we've ever done could be yours, and took the picture of it and documented it. And I have that picture today. I showed our church a few weeks ago because we believe that we're standing in history, but we're still in the making. And so where we're at right now, though it's amazing, it's just the beginning, I really do believe. And I'm getting new visions. So it's a fun time to be in.
So yeah, how did you know that wasn't just illusion?
Well, the thing that I always tell people is that in this walk with Christ, I don't think you're ever going to be 100% sure.
Yeah.
I think people always try to make it act like I knew it was God. I knew it was God. I knew this was what I was supposed to do. But I honestly think it proves to be God. It proves to actually work out. And I think our thing is to have faith. And without faith, it's impossible to do a lot of things. And I tell people, I told my church, I said, I live my life at 51%. I have this philosophy that if I feel like it's God, 51%, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to be 80%, 90%, 100% sure it's God before they take a step. But anytime that I look at anybody in leadership who's been successful at anything, nobody knew.
Oh yeah.
They had to believe. And so for me, in prayer, in talking to counsel, if I'm 51% sure, they know I'm going for it. Like, they know that if he thinks that this is 1% over a negative, it's gonna happen. And it's proven to be God over and over and over again. Even down to a year ago when I told the team, like, hey, if this Spirit Bank event center comes open, because another company had a bid on it and they told us it was not available.
Right.
And literally that deal fell through. And I said, if they tell us this open, we're going for it. And they're like, well, we haven't done all the specs and we haven't done it. I said, I got this word from God 5 years ago, and now we're in a position, like, that was the 1% I needed to go. And I found that even if it wasn't God, he knew he had somebody he could trust.
Right.
Like,
oh, that's good.
So like, cause I thought it was him, I would go. And it takes me back to like Abraham, when he says to Abraham in the Bible, like, hey, go to the land that I will show you.
Right.
Most of us would need God to lay it all the way out. Go to the land that is right here at this coordinates, that you'll meet Betty at the city gates. She's gonna have, we want it all planned out. And I feel like so many of us miss things because we don't walk by faith, we walk by sight. And for me, this is the thing, it may be delusional.
Right.
It may be delusional to some people. It may be, this will never be able to happen. But I found that in my relationship with God and my leadership, when I'm 51% sure, I bet on that. And every time I bet on it, I either learn something amazing along the way that's preparation for the next, or it happens.
Right. It hasn't all been up and to the right.
No.
Have you had some of those 51% that have turned out to be like, yep, shouldn't have done that?
Definitely. I've had to fire a few of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are definitely, but if you turn every potential L, like a loss, into a lesson, you're still winning.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people, I call it the bounce back. Like, I'm always looking for, how does this loss turn into a greater trajectory of upswing? And once I have that attitude and that perspective as I approach things, things don't stay losses for long.
Let's talk about, and this is like a personal question I ask myself almost daily.
Yeah.
Let's talk about motive.
Okay.
How do you keep your motive pure?
Yeah.
Because there's some God in it.
Yeah.
But there's always self.
Well, it's you first. You can't, God doesn't bless who you pretend to be. He blesses who you really are. And I think that there have been several things that have helped my motive. I have a wife named Natalie that really does help me remember why I'm being used, and what I really do believe. When a lot of big things come or opportunities, I have to remember assignment. And that has really helped my motive. The second thing that has helped my motive is hearing the stories of people and how it's impacting their life, and how I would never want to pervert or taint that. Like, when you hear stories of families being reconciled who have never been to Tulsa, but they watch in different areas of the country what we're doing, and it's the only thing they can talk about without arguing, and they've done it for a year, and now they're having Christmas together for the first time. Like, I don't want to, like, if I add ambition into this and becoming a money grabber or anything, like, I feel like those things, it makes me afraid that level of transformation, which is the whole reason we're here, could be tainted by my own thing. And I'm like, I don't want to mess with that. Like, I don't want to do that. And I think the last thing that has really like purified my motives, I'll say two more things, if that's okay.
Yeah.
That have purified my motives is my daily time with God. That prayer that David prayed, I pray all the time, search me, oh God. If there's anything in me that is not like you. Now, this is a scary prayer for all the listeners. Do not pray this prayer if you don't want to be exposed. But when I pray, like, search me, oh God, if there's anything in me that's not like you, take it out, show it to me, remove it. He does that. Like how he answers prayers that we are excited about, posting about, and we're talking about the blessings of God, he'll answer that prayer too. And I'll say something and was like, oh, snap. Like, that was ugly, and that was in my heart. Yeah. Or I'll do something and like the whole motive of that was wrong. And when that happens and I'm exposed to that, it's that thing where you get to either humble yourself or be humbled. Mm-hmm. And I've just chosen, like, I don't ever want God to humble me. So like, I'll humble myself under the mighty hand of God. And so it's been a fun thing with that. And then God's given me an awesome opportunity to remember that all of this really doesn't mean anything. My son, MJ, he's 4 years old. He has autism. And at the same trajectory of all of this exposure and attention, we find out my son has autism. And it made everything really be like great and not that great all at the same time. It made everything be like, who just called? Where am I going? Like, they want to pay how much? Like, all of that be like, but if I could hear my son say, Daddy, or if he could be able to eat more and have a more, like, it just made it all. And so looking at it, still being in the middle of it, it's one of those things that has become an anchor. And I know that as big as God wants to use us, he's given me this anchor to keep me dependent. And I believe all of us have that in some way. Mm-hmm. Whether we recognize it or not, there's this thing that God's trying to use to anchor. And you can be trying to like untether yourself. But I honestly think it's the greatest thing that has happened to me because it's kept me humble and it's kept my motive pure. And I believe those are the things that allow me to work in transparency and authenticity.
I want to come back to that.
Okay.
But let's talk about the inflection points.
Yeah.
So something happened a couple of years ago. It was 2018 where one of your videos so take us from 2015 to that moment when your first video kind of took off online. Okay. What was the trajectory? 2015,
I became the pastor of the church. Nobody was coming to church. I almost didn't survive, okay? 2016, God told me to believe, to go beyond. And that year, we gained $400,000 in the budget and 400 new families came to the church. So that for me as a late 20s church planner, I could have died and gone to heaven that day.
That was like, we're there. We're there. We're in the promised land.
We're going to be okay. 2017, God said stride, STRIDE. And I was like, stride? I don't even say that word. I don't even know what that means. I had to look it up. And it means to walk in long, decisive steps in an intentional direction. And I was like, that's a dumb word. Like, why would you walk somewhere when you could run? Yeah. And I went back and forth with one of my mentors, Tim Ross, around this subject. And we concluded as we searched the scriptures that Jesus fulfilled every messianic prophecy ever spoken about him. And he did it in 3 years, Carey. But you never hear about him running to his next appointment.
You're right.
He walked everywhere. And he walked to Samaria, and they walked to Jerusalem. Like, they walked there. And if I was the son of God, I would at least had a horse. Yeah. I would have at least had a carriage. Some of the disciples would have been the first Uber. I would have done something.
Hurry up, Peter.
Come on. But they walked everywhere. And this is what I coined the phrase as, they found the pace of grace. They were graced for a certain pace that could have been faster, but they would have been outside of that window of grace. And I adopted that, and it culminated in 2017, December 5th and 6th, of me canceling Christmas. And for a church planner, I mean, Christmas and Easter, that's the Super Bowl. That's when we want fireworks, pyrotechnics. We need ice cream sandwiches, and we need the kids to get tattoos that say Jesus lives. Like, we need the whole thing. And God said, cancel it, have a regular Christmas service, and you preach. That's it. And that was a huge faith step for me at the time because I didn't really know like that was okay to do.
Right.
I felt like that was doing under what we should be doing.
So you had a big production in your head ready to go.
I mean, it was already in production.
Oh, wow.
And I pulled the plug on it. This was December 5th. And I felt like that was the obedience step to striding, to walking, to not burning out, to doing less so God could do more. We ended up doing that, and I'm twiddling my thumbs the next 2 weeks. Like, What in the world is about to happen? And December 23rd, 24th, a young lady that we never met, doesn't go to the church, not a celebrity, posted a 2-minute clip of relationship goals, a series I did in August. Okay, so this is December. I did it in August. She's watching it. And, I forgot to tell you, one of the only things that I did as a pastor in my first years, I felt very strong like we were supposed to buy new cameras for our church.
Oh, okay.
And so we had several families that left the church.
Over the camera purchase?
Over $80,000 of camera purchases. Mm-hmm. And for 2.5 years, we saw nothing happen from it, except we would put our messages from Sunday on YouTube.
Yeah.
And about 100 people would watch outside of Transformation Church. Most of them were my mother going back and watching, be like, that's my baby, Hercules. She was just happy for me. But, and so for 2.5 years, nothing. So now fast forward back to 2017, this girl posted and 2 million people watched this relationship goal clip in 48 hours.
Insane.
It's completely insane. And she posted on Twitter, and I didn't have a Twitter account at the time that I was managing. So it was like God was using all of these things to say, hey, listen, because you obeyed me, you did less, I'm about to do more. And I'm about to do it in the most unconventional way so that people can see this wasn't you, it was me. Wow. And so then I'm sitting there oblivious to what's going on because I don't have a Twitter. And all I know is Instagram starts blowing up. I had 4,800 followers on Instagram, and I'm at dinner at P.F. Chang's with my wife, and I'm like, babe, Instagram says I have 14,000 followers. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, we just added 10,000 Instagram followers today. And I was like, oh, Instagram is broken. You know, they have some bugs. Yeah. I think what they did is Black Panther had just came out. They thought I was Michael B. Jordan, not Michael Todd. And so, but I'm not going to tell Instagram. And next day, 10,000 more followers. Thursday, 10,000 more followers. I'm like, what is going on? And then I start getting, talking to some people at our church, and they're like, yeah, people are posting all over Facebook, the relationship goals thing. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, I literally was oblivious. And then we started seeing different things, and people were like, who did you hire? And we're getting calls from different people like, who's your PR agency? And I'm like, PR agency? What are you talking about? Because we at the time had less than 12 staff members. So like, we didn't have nobody cutting up videos and putting them on Facebook. That was all the people being impacted doing it on their own. So these people became the marketing team, and they're sharing it with their friends and their groups and all that other stuff. So what ends up happening in this moment is we go from 1,800 YouTube subscribers to 100,000 in less than 45 days.
Man.
And I'm looking at it like, what's happening? But the thing is that we didn't have even a real working church website at the time. So when people saw this 2-minute clip, they were like, we got to hear the whole sermon. So they go and they type in Michael Todd relationship goals, and they find an 8-part series.
All right.
So they start binge watching it like it was Netflix. They're telling all their friends about it, all this stuff. And so then after they finish relationship goals, they find out there's 2.5 years worth of the same type of content on different different subjects, which speaks to me being obedient at the moment that I said, we got to get these cameras, because when everything blew up, the people, we didn't have to create new content for them to fall in love with. They were falling in love with the content that had already been created. Yeah. So it became this thing where, have you heard of Michael Todd? Has this thing, oh, you got to watch this. Oh, this is a series on finances. This is a series on relationship. This is a series on damaged goods. And people watching, and to this day, hundreds of thousands of people watch those series right now, today, every week.
Which you had been doing when there were 200 people in the room.
When there was nobody watching.
Isn't that incredible?
It's so incredible. Yeah. And it's
a story you couldn't engineer, a story you couldn't write.
Up. Disney couldn't write this. It's kind of one of those things that it's like, it's just been a real divine work.
Any idea, I'm not sure there's an answer to this, Mike, but any idea why your content resonates so much?
Yeah, I have a little idea. I'm actually authentic. Like, everybody buttons up, especially in church, to give people, even when people are like, I'm gonna be real right now, they like, it's like the fake real. It's like the like,
there's a little bit. Yeah,
let me give you a little more than what the average. I'm authentic. I talk about my struggle with pornography. When I was coming into ministry, I talk about having a potential felony case at one time. I talk about the real issues that we have in our marriage. And I always go to the raw of what the issue was. And then I show the answer, which is Jesus all the time. And I think people can identify with that. I think the plastic, the fake, the edited, the uncensored, everything in our lives is getting more unfiltered, except the church a lot of times. And what ends up happening is we have the answer for all of the raw, perverted, messed up things that are going on in society. But a lot of people are scared to lose touch with their donors, with the people that have signed up to this for it being too controversial. And I have nothing to lose. Like, honestly, when I've come into this, I knew it was God. And if all of this goes away tomorrow, I'm good.
I was going to ask you that. Do you still feel like you have nothing to lose?
Nothing to lose.
Wow.
Nothing. Like, I didn't do this. Like, I'm sitting in this auditorium right now, and it's paid off. We paid it off in 7 months, and all this other stuff, and all this can go away, but I'll still embody the vision. I'll be representing God to lost people and found people for transformation in Christ. Whether it's at FedEx, whether it's in a studio, whether I was doing this vision before it was a church vision. And that's what I'm trying to get people to understand is God doesn't care about the organization as much as he cares about the organism. When you embody like what the word of God says, when you become a living epistle, when your business is so successful that people that don't even believe like you believe are asking like, what are you doing? We have more people checking into what Transformation Church is doing, not because they love God or they want to know more about Jesus. It's because like, you just bought an arena. And you're 33 and you don't have a college education. You have 6 months of Tulsa Community College. How did you do that? And because my life is a living epistle, I can't tell this story without people knowing there's some divine things happening in here, then it becomes the one thing that I don't have to be afraid to secure something that I didn't give myself.
So fame and celebrity can be hard at the best of times.
Yeah.
What's this doing to your soul?
Man, I believe that it's exposing what's actually there. And that's all light can do. Like all light can do is illuminate what's already there. So when a spotlight gets turned on you, when cameras are turned on you, when anything, people think that that's something they can hide behind. No, that's the only thing that really exposes you. And I have had the awesome opportunity of being exposed in safety. I have people that are around me, that know my heart, that know my heart's desire. And God's brought people into my life like Rich Wilkerson and Tim Ross and Stephen Furtick and Pastor Robert Morris and different people that if I called their name, you wouldn't know them because they don't have to have anything, but they've been able to be around. The number one being my wife and my parents who are still sitting on the front row every Sunday with me in ministry. Like those people, I've been able to be like, hey, what does money do to you? And be able to figure that out in safety. Hey, what is being able to have a picture with everybody you paid to go to their conference 2 years ago?
Right.
Like, what does it look like for them to text you and ask you to be a part of stuff? And then you have to obey God and say, I can't come because God told me to stride. Like, I've been able to do it in safety and I've been able to counsel. Me and my wife have done 2 weeks and we're headed to a third one here very soon of intense counseling, 3 hours every day for 5 days straight. Of counseling, but it's been the most refreshing thing because the Bible says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul?
Why did you go?
Why did I go?
Counseling.
I went to counseling for a few reasons. Number one, me and my wife, the initial reason was trying to navigate the season we're in with everything that's happening with my son. And the disappointment and all of the firsts that we miss and he has a younger sister, Ava, now, and she can talk everybody's head off, but she's 2 and he's 4, and she has more words than him. Just navigating all of the disappointment and being people of great faith, but being very disappointed in a situation and touching everybody else's family and really having to deal with the tension of like, I believe God, but why hasn't this situation changed? So we were navigating that as a couple individually and was like, we're going to go to counseling. And when we got there, it was so much more about us and not that situation.
Right.
And really what God's doing in us in the season that we're in and how all of the little traumas, success is trauma.
Yeah, it is.
People don't understand that.
No,
they think that the trauma they go through of, not being able to pay bills or having to work on a small business is like a thing. But success is a huge trauma.
How has that been traumatic for you?
It has been it's been traumatic because it's been fast. And it's been traumatic because everything that I do is in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
Right.
Like there's nothing, like I can't fail small.
How does that pressure feel, Mike?
It's one of those things that, and I don't know if this is the right answer, but it's the truthful one.
Yeah.
I feel like I was built for it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to say it. I work very well under pressure. The one thing that I've had to learn is that everybody does it.
Yeah.
And that has, because of the people factor of it, because of the people I love, because of my wife, my family, my team, I've had to slow down. That's why God, I believe, gave me that word stride.
Yeah.
Because my motor, like, let's go, full steam ahead. But you miss miracles when you go fast. And you miss opportunities to touch people. So you remember in the Bible when Jairus was saying, hey, my daughter's dying, Jesus, will you come? He says, I'm coming. But he walked there. How do we know he walked? Because he went at a pace that a whole crowd of people could be around him. And a woman who had been bleeding for 12 years was able to reach out and touch him. If he was running, she would have never been able to even touch him. If he was going as fast as he could go, he could have floated there. He could have walked through a wall, but he was walking at a pace where people could keep up and a miracle could happen. And for me, when we went to counseling, when we did these different things, it was making me step back and be like, yeah, we just got to stay in the pace of grace. Like we got to make sure our soul is healthy. We got to make sure that we've had fun, that we enjoy these moments, that we can step back and pray and look at each other and be like, can you believe what God did? And it's helped us so much in our marriage. We are about to celebrate 10 years of marriage. It's crazy that this book, Relationship Goals, is coming out at a point where we're celebrating 10 years. And we met when she was 14 and I was 15.
Wow.
So we've been together for a very long time. And but our marriage is stronger than it's ever been. Our family is stronger than it's ever been. Our ministry is stronger than it's ever been. And I've done less than I've ever done.
Yeah, that's kind of, because we were talking about that. Like you actually, was it right after that first counseling round, you just kind of cleared the deck for 6 or 7 months? Right before.
Right before.
Take us through that.
So I think this thing of striding, people, we said less is more, but there's seasons that stride doesn't have to do with fast or slow.
Yeah.
It has to do with what you're graced for in that season. And a lot of people, they just run at this motor like, this is how I do. But maybe you were graced to do that in one season, but now the season has changed and you need to find the pace of grace in that season. The result is the same. The increase is the same, but you're not burnt out at the end of it, or your marriage is not failing at the end of it. And what ended up happening was I had 2018, God opened up doors and I spoke at some of the most influential churches and conferences ever. And it was like, what is happening? And so we was like, okay, 2019, let's keep going. And in 2019, I had bookings in 2022. Like, it was like ridiculous stuff. And then I got to about June or July, and in prayer, I felt like God was like, hey, you need to check with your wife and see how everything's going. So we had a big team meeting, and she was like, Mike, I really need you. I'm overwhelmed with stuff that's happening with MJ. Just take a few less engagements. And I was like, okay, cool, we'll do that. That morning I woke up with such a conviction on my heart that my first ministry is my family. And God gave me scripture for it and all this other stuff. And I was like, I'm canceling everything. I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. I went to my team, I went to my church, I went to the people. I had 13 engagements, arena engagements. I mean, thousands of people on the billboards, all this other stuff. And I was so worried about my reputation and I'm new in this and da-da-da-da. And God said, you know this is me and I'll protect your reputation. I'll be your refuge. I'll be your. And so I was like, okay. And I called a couple of very influential leaders and asked them how would they approach this. And I got wisdom because there's wisdom in a multitude of counsel. And then I did it. I canceled all 13 engagements. And so literally, I didn't have any engagements from July 2019 until January 2020. Cleared the deck. But at the moment I obeyed to stride again, God opened up this building. 2 weeks later. Isn't that
incredible?
2 weeks later, this building opens up. We then do our first conference and 4,500 people come from all over the world. Somebody from every state in the U.S., including Alaska, was at this conference in 30 different countries, and it was our first conference. We sold out 2 weeks before the conference. Like, it was like
Easy.
all of these amazing things begin to happen. We weren't supposed to move into this building, Carey, until next September. And on the second night of the conference, I just felt like, yo, we can't go back to that converted grocery store. We have to, God's saying this is it. So literally on a Thursday during a conference, I tell the team, we're not going back to our other location. We're staying here. And they're like, oh, great. But I mean, logistically, we had nothing here. Jeremy Foster preached at our church that Sunday, and Hope City moved by faith. They paid for the rental equipment for that day, which was $60,000 just for the day.
Wow.
And literally during the week, I have a picture of it. This entire arena empty, no sound equipment, no music equipment, everything, because we rented it for a conference, and we had to have church here on Sunday. I gave our sound people, it's crazy until it happens. And that's why this whole thing of crazy faith, I really do think some of my ones are like, I could never worked with him, or anything. But it's one of those things that it's really been shaking people's faith of what's possible. And I'm happy to report 7 months later, we own every piece of equipment in this building. Everything is paid off.
Yeah. And you pay, I mean, it was built for how much?
$54 million.
And you got it
for 10.5.
Yeah.
It's 162,000 square feet arena and office spaces, 4 stories of office spaces, and it came with a 975 car covered parking garage. And we bought the entire thing for $10.5 million. We took the loan out in August and we paid it off in 7 months.
That's exceptional.
That's God.
So we could be here all day.
Yes, sir.
And I wish I was here all day.
Come on, man.
But let's talk about your book.
Yes, sir.
For the 3 people who haven't read it by the time this comes out, would you tell us, this is the series that kind of blew up that
Yes,
you've
sir.
now turned into book form, but you didn't, it's different because you
different.
shared with me the vision behind the book.
Yeah, so I grew up in church. I was a wild child, so like I heard all the stuff we were supposed to do and like did the exact opposite. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things that I realized as I navigated through my relationship journey is, out of all the sermons, all the lessons, all the things that I learned, nobody really talked about relationships. It was kind of like you had one rule: don't have sex before you're married. And it was kind of like, well, what happens if you've done that? What happens if you were violated young? What happens if you went to your uncle's house and found some magazines under the bathroom cap? Like, what happened? Like, there was no instruction. And I decided that a lot of me and Natalie's struggles and successes were accidents. They weren't intentional.
Right.
And this phrase came up called relationship goals. And I began to think about that. How can you have a goal if you don't have aim? And there are so many people that want relationship goals. They want their husband or wife to be this or that, and they got their list and all that other stuff. But relationally, they get friends, they date, and they marry people with no aim. And I thought, like, hey, why don't I take what I didn't have and instead of complaining about it, become a solution? And I really wrote this book for my granddaughter. And that's
It does
crazy.
not exist.
That does not exist right now. I am 33 years old and my oldest child is 6.
Right.
But I thought about, what if I wrote a playbook of things that I've learned from the Word of God in my actual life that my granddaughter or grandson could pick up and be able to have an understanding of what I had to figure out, which with a lot of hurt, with a lot of frustration, with a lot of accidents, because I just had no understanding. And where there's no wisdom or no knowledge, people perish because of a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding. And I believe in this time that we live in, where more people don't want to be in relationships, they just want to have friends with benefits, they want to Netflix and chill, they want to create babies and have children outside of the context of family. It's just all these things. I think it's one of those things that if we're going to win in relationship, we need to go back to the originator of relationship, which is God. And we need to figure out what are those truths that last. And let's set that as the target, because culture is really setting the target for relationships. And it's an ever moving target. What marriage was in the 60s is different than what marriage is in the 90s, and it's completely different than what it is today. And that moving target allows people not to truly aim. And so I decided, hey, let's get a real goal for relationships and let's win in relationships. And I am really excited to be able to share some of the things that I found from people who are dating and need to figure out a system to do that in, which they can get in and get out of. Today, dating is like getting married. Like once you're Facebook official, it's like you have to have a divorce to to not be in relationship with those people, to intentional friendship, to what happens if you're on your second marriage, or what happens if you're single and becoming content in singleness. How do I know a relationship needs to end? Like all of these different things we have tried to concisely and authentically put into this book that'll help people win in relationships.
Was writing hard for you or easy?
I think that writing is hard for me. Talking is not hard for me.
Yeah, I can tell.
Talking. And so we found a process where I could really dictate most of this and then put it in somebody's hands that could put it together. And then I went back and fine-tooth combed and rewrote basically the whole book.
That's
so I found my process to like talk it out first, put it in book form, and was like, I would never, ever say that. And so basically rewrite the book with the format, and we came out with relationship goals.
Last question for you. And again, we could have gone on another hour.
You got two more in you. Come on.
All right. Yeah, I got 20. Listen, you know a good interview? I didn't even look at my iPad.
Oh, wow.
And I think I looked once. So that's a good interview. So I guess I can close it now.
Okay, come on,
All right,
man.
I can close it now. Take us through, because this is breakneck speed.
Yeah.
And I love the part of your story where it's, years without momentum, just a lot of crazy faith.
Yeah.
That's going to speak to a lot of leaders. But there are people who are on a rocket ride right now listening to this podcast too, in business and in church world. Walk us through. So you've shut yourself down numerous times. You've gone offsite to counseling, 3 rounds, which is good.
I take a month sabbatical every year.
You take a month sabbatical every year.
Yep.
So talk about that. What do you do with that?
This is a spiritual practice for me that is very hard. So I want to preface it by that, because I feel like if I'm here, if I can do what I need to do, at least if it fails, it was my fault.
Right.
But this is where I put the ministry and the church back in God's hand every year. And this is another thing that keeps me humble, is I walk away from everything, office, business. If it's not on fire and burning down, don't call me about it. And it makes me know this is God's church. It's not mine. And it's going to be his before me, and it'll be his after me. And I go away. I go on a week vacation with my wife, and we have a great time just connecting and thanking God for everything that he's doing. I come back and we do what we call PK Vacay, which is, my kids are young right now, but we spend and plan out 7 whole days of going to the zoo, going to the activity, making gack, making slime, doing all this other stuff, but making it just completely intentional. I've seen too many ministers, business leaders, as well as CEOs lose their family and gain money, gain success, gain affluence. And I was like, we're not going to do that. And so we are intentional with that. Then that 3rd week, I do what I call honey-do list. Like everything that I should have hung, put up, painted, I do that. And that last week, then I go away and I seek God. Wow. I go read, I go pray, I write down vision, and relationship goals came the first message off a sabbatical.
Really?
The first message after I recreated. That's what that word means, recreation. Yeah. It's recreating. And God could have built everything in 6 days, but he put in there another day that is counted, but he said he rested. And there are too many of us that are not doing the things that we need to do to recreate. We're just continuing to create. And what happens is, if you don't get a re-up of the creation, sometime it'll run out. And I decided we're going to do that. And again, it's a spiritual practice. It's a trust practice. It feels like, I'm sitting here and I'm not doing anything. And it takes me a week and a half, 2 weeks to even turn off. But at the level that God is blessing, he's like, the church grows when I'm gone. It's like almost like, maybe I don't need to come back. or we see momentum, or I get the best ideas coming off a sabbatical. And it's one of those things that it helps me. And I just would encourage anybody who's on a rocket ship ride.
Yeah.
Like, turn them off.
Right. Less is more. We talked about that before.
More.
And people don't get that.
They do not get it because they want it to never stop. And this is the thing. Either it's going to stop involuntarily or you're going to stop and make it last.
I can tell you all about that one day.
Yes, sir.
That's what happened to me. When did you start your sabbatical? What year?
At the year I became the pastor of the
Really?
church.
2015.
2015.
So when you had 150 people.
Literally,
Yeah.
that first time I was like, I'm going to come back and the church is going to be completely gone. Because February 1st, 2015, I became the pastor. July, my mentor said, you got to leave. He said, you got to teach the people that your priority is not the church. It's your family. And if you teach them early, some people will leave. He said, but the people who get it, they'll respect you and honor you for it. And that has been, I literally get up and tell my church every time that we take a sabbatical, I said, I'm giving you permission as the pastor of this church to take 2 weekends off of coming here for the purpose of intentionally connecting with your family. And I'd never heard that from a pulpit.
No, I've never heard that either.
But why in the world would we have people come? We're healing stuff that could be healed if you took a break. We're praying for stuff. We're sending people to counseling and doing stuff that if you would just stop and look at your wife and pay attention to your kids and actually like go do something you like to do that you lose money at.
Yeah.
Like it would give back to you in a way that would allow you to last. And a lot of people aren't lasting. You see these rocket ship stories, but as my friend Judah Smith would say, I want to be better at 70. Like, I'm 33 years old. I don't know how long I'm going to be a pastor. If God's done all of this in 5 years, I don't know what he's going to do. I'm 40 in 7 years.
Yeah.
I don't know what 40 looks like for me. What I am going to know is that my wife will be a priority. My children will know that I love them. And I'll be obedient to whatever God tells me to do.
Wow.
I'm going to stride.
Anything else you want to share, Mike?
I like you, Carey.
I like you.
I mean,
Mike.
this is fun for me, man. I honestly I'm excited about all of the people that are listening right now that have a huge dream. And I just want to let you know I'm living proof that if you follow the playbook that you feel in your heart that has been set out for you, at some point, at some time. I'm not saying it'll happen in 5 years. I'm not saying it'll happen in 10. All this could be gone tomorrow. What we're trying to do right now is live at 51%. And so I'm encouraging you, everybody that's listening, live at 51%. You got it.
I'm in. I'm down. Relationship goals available everywhere. Literally everywhere.
Hopefully
It'll
everywhere.
Probably be the #1 book in the world.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Mike, what a gift this has been. And you've been so generous with your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Man, this has been fun, Carey. I appreciate you, man. First of many.
Well, I hope today's episode was helpful to you. You can always get more by subscribing to my channel. I also have a lot more content over at CareyNieuwhof.com for leaders in business and leaders in churches. And you can get transcripts of this episode there and so much more, plus some other stuff I do for leaders. So head on over there to discover more at CareyNieuwhof.com. And in the meantime, I really hope our time together today has helped you lead like never before.